All right, good morning. Thank you all for joining us here today for this announcement. These past couple of years have brought a lot of heartache. In Western Kentucky, we had the worst tornado event in our history in 2021. We had flooding in Eastern Kentucky in 2021, and then 2022, Breathitt County and Jackson hit hard by both. We knew the recovery process for both of these events, I guess all three, would take years. But I made a promise in both the East and the West. I promised Kentucky would be there for those affected every step of the way, no matter how hard and no matter how long. Today, we're taking a big step forward in helping our neighbors who were impacted by the tornadoes of 2021 and the floods of 2021. Many lost their homes. Some lost everything that they owned. That brings us to today's announcement. In the wake of these tragedies, the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, announced that $123 million will be coming to Kentucky from the federal government to help us rebuild from those two disasters. Under the terms of the program, 80% of the $123 million will go to 4 counties that were impacted the most by those two 2021 weather events. Those are Graves, Warren, Hopkins, and Breathitt counties. The other 20% of the funding will go to help Boyd, Caldwell, Christian, Clark, Clay, Estill, Floyd, Fulton, Greenup, Hart, Hickman, Jackson, Johnson, Knott, Laurel, Lawrence, Lee, Leslie, Letcher, Lincoln, Logan, Lyon, Madison, Magoffin, Marion, Marshall, Martin, Morgan, Muhlenberg, Ohio, Owsley, Perry, Powell, Pulaski, Rockcastle, and Taylor counties. Now, I do again want to mention that these are just the funds for the 2021 flooding and tornadoes, which is why a couple counties hit very hard in 2022 might be in 20% of this. But you will hear in a moment that we believe we are going to get that second round of funding for the 2022 flooding opened up in record time. So for this funding, on May the 1st, we will begin accepting applications for our disaster recovery program from cities, counties, nonprofits, for-profits, and other governmental entities in these counties for building back homes, rental properties, and building new multifamily rental properties. These groups will be conducting public outreach to make sure they are meeting housing and infrastructure needs in their impacted communities. Then, on June 1st, we will begin accepting applications for public infrastructure like roads and bridges, as well as building new homes. I want to note that as of now, there is no deadline for these applications, but there is still a lot of need out there. We're going to spread the wealth to those who need it the most. If you are someone who is impacted, I'd encourage you to reach out to your local nonprofit housing partners or your local housing authority about the disaster recovery program. You can also contact our Department of Local Government directly at dlg.dr@ky.gov to help answer any questions. That's dlg.dr@ky.gov. Estimates indicate that this funding will go towards the construction of 600 homes in the impacted area. Those are 600 families that just this most recent funding will help ensure they have a roof over their head, that they are back on their feet, and that they can be a part of this incredible economy we're seeing, especially growing in Western Kentucky right now. I want to acknowledge Senator McConnell for his work on the federal level to help secure this money. Disaster recovery is not partisan. Never should be partisan. It should be about our people and how we move forward. In a couple of weeks, we're going to make an announcement about the application for the 2022 floods in Eastern Kentucky. Earlier this year, HUD announced that nearly $300 million will be available. If we're able to make that announcement in the next couple of weeks, I believe that will be the fastest that these types of funds have ever been opened up. Combined, these funds will contribute to the work we have already been doing through donations made to the Team Western Kentucky Tornado Relief Fund and the Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Funds. Over $26 million just from those funds has been committed to building homes in the East and the West, working with Habitat for Humanity, Homes and Hope, and the Mayfield Graves Fuller Center for Housing, the Fuller Center for Disaster Rebuilders, the HOPE Initiative, Mayfield Graves Long-Term Recovery Foundation for Appalachian Kentucky, Housing Development Alliance, and Homes, Inc. At least 74 homes have been or are being constructed from those funds. Those are 74 families that should be or already are in a house after one of the most difficult disasters this state has ever seen. We've also announced new high ground communities in the east in response to the 2022 flooding, and as we continue to get those sites build ready, our team is evaluating additional sites where we could not only get everyone back in a home, but maybe solve some housing issues, especially in the east, that we have seen for decades. We know that there are many others from all sectors across Kentucky that are building homes right now, and we want to say thank you. Every single trip, I meet a new group, oftentimes church groups, that are coming in, that are doing incredible work, and I want to say, and I know they will, that we are really grateful. Now, we have some incredible local officials here with us who I definitely want you to hear from. First, I'd like to ask Mayor Kathy Onan of Mayfield to say a few words. Mayor?
Thank you, Governor. This is truly an amazing announcement. About a year ago, we heard about this money, just flutterings about this funding that was going to be made available to us. And except for the loss of lives, which can never be regained, homes were our greatest loss. They can be rebuilt, but it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of funding. And so with these applications being able to be accepted so soon, it is so exciting. Both Mayor Thomas and Judge Executive Whitfield from Hopkins County, we stand before you today, and they'll tell you a little bit more, but we represent a tough year, the last year and a half that's happened in the Commonwealth. But here we stand, and we stand here with Governor Beshear, who's been right there with all of us through all of this, and then I'm so thankful he mentioned Senator McConnell, because he pushed this through for us too. So what a wonderful day to be in Frankfort, to stand in this rotunda of this Capitol, and to be able to really realize what's headed our way.
I want to thank Mayor Onan for her leadership. Not only is Mayfield being rebuilt, but Graves County and Mayfield made top 100 of micropolitan economic development last year, more than 750 new jobs in that community alone, meaning there is reason to rebuild, that this community is going to not just survive, but thrive. Next, we're joined by Hopkins County Judge Executive Jack Whitfield. Jack has done an incredible job in responding to those tornadoes. He's also been in charge of the rebuilding of my dad's hometown of Dawson Springs. I am really grateful to Judge Whitfield, and let me say, his response has been phenomenal. He has my full support. Jack?
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Appreciate you having me here today, and really excited about this announcement. You came right after the tornado came through and saw the destruction and the death and the despair that were on people's faces, and we can never change what happened that night. But now we have been moving forward. You know, the McKnight family that you know very well, they've got a new house.
Yes, they do.
Anita Black's family, a new house. We're seeing rebuilding all in Dawson Springs, but there's so many that can't get there from where they are right now. So this funding is going to take care and help those so much who may not be able to otherwise afford a new house. The DR grant funding, the Product Development Initiative money will help rebuild the economy of Dawson Springs and help to rebuild the economy of Kentucky. When you read that list of counties, it's just overwhelming, the amazing events and destruction that we've seen across Kentucky. So this is going to be huge to keep bringing us forward and to continue the great economic development years that we've had, that we talked about this morning.
Yes.
I think this is just going to make sure that we continue that growth, and that Kentucky will be better than it's ever been because of events like this. So thank you so much for helping to push this. Sometimes we complain about the federal government being slow, and it still is, but we're there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, next we have Mayor Laura Thomas of Jackson, who has now dealt with multiple 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000 year floods. In 2021, we were in a Black Hawk together looking at the flooding that had occurred at that time, and then working together in 2022. Actually, I believe together we even evacuated a community that we were worried might get wiped out, but thankfully was not. She has been a tough mayor in tough times, and the city of Jackson is lucky to have her.
Thank you, Governor. I'm honored to be asked to be here with you today for this announcement on the funding. This is funding that we have desperately needed. You know what, you've been there, and you really have. So we appreciate that he's been in Eastern Kentucky, he's been in Breathitt County and Jackson, and seen what the people are going through. We have a great need for housing still. We have a good local leadership team that's working with the state, your state officials and our federal officials to identify places that we can build housing, and of course we need the infrastructure to support that housing. So these funds will be utilized wisely, and we appreciate all the legislators on the state and federal level that have voted to approve this funding. And it's a sad situation, but we're going to try to see that we come out of it better, stronger, and just appreciate you being there along the way. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Again, we know no amount of funding will ever bring back the 81 we lost in the tornadoes, the 45 we lost in the flooding. For that matter, the 18,000 we've lost in the pandemic. And remember, these are people's parents, kids, relatives, and there is still a lot of grief in the Commonwealth that we are all going to process, something that I certainly feel as well. But what we can do is to continue our commitment, no matter how hard or how long that it takes to get each and every one of these families back up on their feet. That is Kentucky's commitment, that is these local leaders' commitment, and now, starting May 1st, to be able to accept applications that are going to help us build 600 plus homes in areas hit just in 2021 and coming soon. An announcement about 2022 is really special. I want to thank the Department of Local Government and others for helping to get this open and running. All right, happy to take any questions.
Governor, can you tell me, have you read the story that is in Louisville public media about the failings of the disaster recovery efforts in Eastern Kentucky? And I wonder if you care to comment on that.
I haven't had a chance to fully read the story, but let me start by saying thousands of families were impacted by the worst flooding in my lifetime. People who have lost everything. And this rebuild, as well as the cleanup, is going to be one of the most challenging that we have ever faced. Think about the topography, the thousands of miles of streams that were impacted, and people. So, anyone who feels like they're not treated right during the cleanup effort or during the rebuild, listen, we want to be there for them. We want to work through it with them. We know that when you've lost everything, it is a really difficult time, and I, as governor, want to make sure that everyone is treated right. Certainly, a lot of work has been done. If you have been out and seen Eastern Kentucky and see where it is now, a whole lot's been done. But the work continues, and I'm not going to be satisfied until we are completely finished, both with the cleanup as well as the rebuild, and we have everybody in a better place. Every single individual in this Commonwealth are one of our people that need to be treated with dignity and with respect. Now, we do have just a week ago, another phase. Remember, this happens in phase. That's going to help people that have been waiting a long time, and that's the private property debris removal. We weren't allowed to do that with FEMA and with other issues until really recently. That's a new $10 million program, and hopefully for some families that have said, why not here, that will answer it.
I have a question for both mayors. What does your area look like today, and how critically important is this aid needed to help
We'll go together.
Well, I can say our beautiful mountains are still standing, so come east and you can see. But you do see destruction. It is still very sad. You can see where homes were swept away, but we're going to be resilient, and we're going to rebuild and get people out of the floodplain. But yeah, come to the mountains. They're there.
or come to Western Kentucky, about as far as you can go. And you will see a lot of flat, barren property downtown Mayfield, but you will also see you will see a lot of new homes already being built by some of the nonprofits that the governor mentioned earlier, but you will also see businesses start to rebuild. And that is just so exciting to us. I go through town on my way to my office every day, and I count 16 already. That we want it to be 60, but we're headed that way. Thank you for asking that question.
I'll say we've still got some debris in places where people wouldn't let us get to, but for the most part, everything is cleaned up. We do have a lot of open lots now, and we have a lot of houses that have been started, and groups coming in, Catholic Charities, the Fuller Group, the Brethren. Habitat for Humanity's done wonderful. So we're seeing houses coming up, and it's starting to look better. But you're going to see the remnants of this tornado for decades. I mean, you look out in the woods, and it's just, there are places that are just flattened still.
And if I can add, just at least in Dawson, a town very personal to me, you do see new homes coming up. And the homes look like they should be on a ranch in Montana. They're beautiful. And how Dawson will look in 10 years is going to be something special, maybe like West Liberty and their rebuild. But you still see that there's a lot of work to be done. And I want to make sure that we are acknowledging that both in the east and the west. There's a lot of work. As you drive into Dawson, what was always on your right were the ball fields and the swimming pool and the rest, where our kids, those kids would go, where my dad grew up playing baseball and basketball, and there's still a lot of work that needs to be done then. And we have to understand that that continues to impact families. Maybe some have stopped playing that sport. Listen, our local leaders are doing everything they can. We're working as hard as we can on the state level, but there's going to be challenges every day, and none of us are going to be satisfied until the job is done.
Governor, I have a couple of questions. The first one, the HUD money that's coming up, are you aware how that money may help renters, given the fact a lot of rental properties were destroyed in Mayfield? Are landlords going to be incentivized to rebuild?
So I know that rental properties are included in the HUD dollars. We'll need to get you the details of how and what qualifies, because I think it's pretty specific.
Got it. And second question I have, I understand that the state declined recently to take part in a climate reduction solutions grant program through the federal government. Are you aware why the state decided to let the largest cities create climate action plans instead of a statewide approach, including far western Kentucky and eastern Kentucky?
Sure. So as a state right now, there are thousands of different grant programs that we can apply to and for. Look at getting the largest infrastructure grant in U.S. history for the Brent Spence Bridge. Look at our well capping program, where we have now capped more abandoned natural gas wells, which emit methane, which is one of the worst gases, certainly for greenhouse emissions, than any other state. In the end, we looked at that. We believe that our cities and other communities across Kentucky would have better opportunities, and it was better suited for them. But at the end of the day, there are so many of these programs that we have to pick and choose.
Governor, can you explain how people get in the pipeline for this when the application period opens?
Yes, we'll have that application up through DLG. They are the group that will be running it. We will be opening that on May the 1st, so people will be able to access that information. We'll certainly be getting it out specifically to the 4 counties, 3 of which are represented here that qualify for the largest percentage. And there is more need even than this money. It is great that it is here, but just the number of homes wiped out in the West, over $1.2 billion in just infrastructure damage, water and wastewater alone in the East. Sometimes we lose sight, maybe because a natural disaster was a year and a half ago, of how much damage is done and how long it takes to rebuild. But our people are strong, and we are still right there with them.
How soon can you expect the aid for folks to get this aid? Late summer, early fall?
Once this opens and we accept applications in June, we can start approving, and so we hope that this money will be coming out this summer.
Can you say, like, the people that are going to be able to benefit from this, where are they now? Are they still living in trailers? Are they living with family? Where are they residing?
So it differs right now in what we see in the West and in the East. In the West, we saw people need travel trailers. but they found more stable housing, and sometimes that's with family, sometimes it's with rental units, sometimes they sold their property and bought another house. But we know that there are people that are still in intermediate housing, whether it's in our travel trailers or not, and they want to go home. Right? I remember pouring concrete in the east for a family that was living in Richmond, but they'd lived in Letcher County their entire lives. And so while we have wonderful families and opportunities that help stabilize, which we're now seeing in the east with people moving out of travel trailers, that's not permanency. Our goal here is to get people back in their forever house, a house that can sustain anything that comes at them, and to truly be able to say, no matter how many years it took, that they are back on their feet. And let me tell you, going into one of these new homes with somebody who has moved in and has put their furniture in and their kids are in there, it is a special experience every single time. And more than anything, you see their relief. You see them breathing out because a large part of their difficult journey is done. That's going to take a while in the West to get everybody there. It's going to take even longer in the East, but we're committed to doing it.
Governor, I just had one follow-up regarding the grants program. Just broadly speaking about disaster preparedness, is climate change a consideration in terms of how the state prepares for disasters, in your opinion?
Listen, I believe in climate change. It's out there and it's real, and what it means is that we need to be better prepared in multiple different areas of our lives in ways that we didn't have to before. But certainly with the tornadoes and the floods, we all expect severe weather events to hit. So look at when we build back bridges in the East. I never thought I'd get teary over a bridge, but when I saw one of the first ones rebuilt that could take that last flooding or even worse flooding, we see how if we build with resiliency, and even if people don't want to use that term, I use it, I believe in it, we need our structures to be stronger. We now seem to see windstorms about every couple months. And so when we that house in Dawson that we helped open for a guy who turns out had worked with my uncle at their nursing home, they talked about the materials that go into it, the winds that it can take. That's how we've got to be building now. All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. You too.
Thank you again.
Absolutely.
We've got a lot of work to do. Your support has been
We're going to keep it up.